Hi everyone, welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem. I'm standing up today, but that's another story for another time. I'm so delighted to welcome you to our next set of Stash series videos. I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone because it's because of you guys that we can continue to do these videos. The items in today's video have been bought with the cash that has come from the Stash shop, so the second-hand art supply items that you guys have bought. I hope you're all enjoying your supplies and long this may continue. The next saving up that we're going to do is for charity, and I've thought long and hard about this and I've decided to make the lofty goal of £300. I think we can do it, and I hope that you will continue to go and check out the Stash shop and pick up anything that takes your fancy and contribute to what is now going to be a good cause. I feel like we're doing really well and we are getting everything that we need out of the channel in terms of having money to do things, and it might be nice to just share that with somebody that maybe needs it a little bit more than us. Today's video, watercolour pencils. You were all up on the watercolour pencils. That's what you wanted, so that's what you're getting. I do have reasons for each set of pencils that are going to be on display today. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at each brand of pencils that we've got, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the watercolour properties of these pencils as well, and we'll give them a little bit of a road test today, and in subsequent videos we will make some art with them and we can see how we get on. I'm really excited. I don't play with watercolour pencils that often. Let's get to top down view. We can get going. Well, aren't we in for a treat today? As I mentioned in the introduction, I do have reasons for having all these pencils, and I wanted to give everyone a really good overview of watercolour pencils and just really what money can get you. So I'm quite excited to try this because watercolour pencils aren't something I use a lot of the time. So first things first, I'm going to start from the top. The most expensive watercolour pencils are that I have in this collection here are the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer pencils, and these are sort of widely regarded as very good quality. They are quite expensive, and this is my own personal set. The reason that I like them is I am a huge fan of polychromos pencils, and these are exactly the same colours, so obviously I'm familiar with the colours in the polychromos and they are absolutely identical in these pencils. So this is a set of 120. Yes, they're beautiful, and you can tell that I use the greens more than anything else. So yeah, so just talking about watercolour pencils in general, might as well just start here. Obviously the idea is that they look like normal pencils. They can also be used as normal pencils as well. You do not have to necessarily use them in a painterly or watercolour sense. But the difference with these to normal pencils is that they are water soluble, and when you mix them with water, they behave in the same way that watercolour paint would. Now what that means is that you can continue to dilute them and you will get a weaker and weaker incarnation of whatever you've put down. It also means as well that it should have lifting properties the same as watercolour. So if you were to put something down on your paper, even when it's dry, if you add a lot of water to it, it should still continue to dilute and you're actually able to lift it off the paper. Now the lifting ability will vary between the brands of pencils and between the quality of pencils, and that's something that I'd quite like to investigate. As for the Faber-Castell pencils, they are supposed to be very light, fast, very high quality, so you would expect the solubility to be good as well. You would expect the lifting properties to be reasonable too. This set comes, the biggest set's 120, which is obviously this set here, so you have a huge range of pencils. Now the other thing about watercolour pencils as well is there's different ways to use them, and it's really down to your own preference and your own technique. One of the things I'm curious about was to find another sort of premium brand so that I could compare two different types of artist grade watercolour pencils. So the other set that I have here are the Derwent watercolour pencils. Now this is brand new, this is still sealed. I have never touched these watercolour pencils in my life. So here we have the set of 12, and the set of 12 in most sets tend to be a sort of standard set of colours. You get your primaries and you usually get a green, brown, black, etc, etc. So we want to take a look at these as well. And the interesting thing about Derwent watercolour pencils is that they're considered to be one of the more affordable artist grade watercolour pencils. And one thing that I learned is they changed the formula of their watercolour pencils in 2009, and apparently before that they weren't that great, and since they've changed the formula and sort of marketed them more towards a professional grade watercolour pencil, these are one of the best selling watercolour pencils on the market. So I'm really keen to try them out as well and just see what those are all about. So going to like a middle of the road range is the Faber-Castell Goldfaber range. Now these are classed as student grade watercolours. They are very affordable. I have good recollections of these pencils. I got these in a scroller box way back when I first started the channel, and I really liked them and they were really soft. So you can see it's the same sort of idea, the same sort of colour range, and these are very affordable. I think they come in a set up to 48 colours. So obviously as you go down the price range, the actual range of colours available is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's usually one of the main characteristics that are different between the likes of the artist grade ones. But these are a great middle of the road pencil from what I remember, but it's interesting for me now to try these out that I've had a bit of more arting experience in general and see if I still feel the same way about them. So we'll have a go with those. And the next up, this is a very sort of UK centric one. Again, I was a fan of the W.H. Smith coloured pencils if you are a beginner. And I recommend them to people in the UK that are just starting out with coloured pencil and they're not sure they want to run the risk of spending a lot of money on buying, you know, expensive pencils. But they're really good for the money that you pay for them because these are cheap. So this is the watercolour version, and again I've never tried these. I have tried their coloured pencils, and this is a set of 24. Now I got this from the W.H. Smith outlet shop, so this is like a defective items, so they're still new and sealed but there's something wrong, and in this case all that's wrong is the pin has come out of the lid. That's supposed to be a hinged lid, so I paid a lot less for these than you would pay if you just went and bought them from W.H. Smith or bought them off their normal website. So we've got quite a nice range of colours. The first thing that strikes me about these ones, these have round barrels and everything so far has had a hexagonal barrel, so that's the first thing. And we've got dipped ends in this lovely sort of a wood colouring. So that's like the next step down. And finally, I did want to try a school grade or like a kids grade watercolour, and I got a set of these. And the reason I've picked these ones is that I had a set of these at the very beginning when I first started arting. I already owned a set of these. And again, it's back to this. I'd quite like to see how they stand up next to some of the other pencils. And you also get a paintbrush with this one, which I thought was quite cute as well. So these are the Staedtler Norris Aquarelle, and the Norris pencils are generally geared towards kids. But that's not to say that they're not good quality, because Staedtler have got quite a good reputation for stuff like this. They're just not very good at making artist grade coloured pencils. That's just my opinion. So you can see, same thing again, same sort of rough colour range. And the thing about the Staedtler pencils is, I hope you can see that, there's like a white core that encases the actual lead of the pencil, and that's to stop breakage. So again, kids bouncing them about and stuff, you know, might get on better. So, but that's something else we're going to hopefully take a look at as well, as like sharpening capabilities as well. And again, hexagonal barrel, great because they don't roll off the table. And as I said, you get a wee paintbrush in with that as well. So these are pretty cheap. So really curious to find out. Now obviously when you get down to this stage, these aren't going to be very light fast at all. They may have some light fast properties, but I wouldn't be relying on them. They basically tout them as they're made of certified wood, you know, from sustainable forests, and the fact that they're not breakable. And it does say down at the bottom 3+, so you know you can give these to kids and hopefully they'll survive. So there we go. Okay, so here are some rough prices for each of these different brands of pencils in a 12 set. These are average online prices for the UK. Obviously there will be fluctuation depending on where you are in the world. But as you can see, the Derwent are priced up there with the Albrecht Dürers, so that's quite interesting to note straight off the bat. As expected, the Goldfaber pencils, which is the kind of student grades one, they're landing somewhere in the middle. What did surprise me was how expensive the W.H. Smith ones are new. £7.50-ish. Some places were as low as £6 and some places were as high as £8.50. I thought they'd be a little bit cheaper than that. The 24 set that I bought here off of the outlet, I think I paid £9 and that was for 24. So that's quite interesting. And the little Statler Norrises are coming in at £4. Okay, so that's just going to give you an idea of what we might expect quality wise, but I think we're going to be surprised in some places. Now, I will be testing all these pencils on the same paper, and one of my favourite brands of paper for stuff like this just now is the paper that came in one of the Artful subscription boxes. This is heavyweight watercolour paper, and I like it because it's got a lot of texture. It's not a particularly expensive paper, but this is going to be absolutely perfect for us testing out what we need to test out. With the larger sets, the W.H. Smith 24 and the Faber-Castell Albrechts, I will pick the 12 closest colours to the ones in the other sets as well. So first of all, just to see what they look like down on the paper, I am going to swatch them all out across here and we can take a look from there. Okay, so let's have a quick chat about these as pencils. Now, looking at them sitting here, there isn't actually an awful lot of difference in terms of vibrancy. If you just look down the selection here, they're all pretty bright. The other thing that I always use as a judge and is a really good way of seeing about lay down and colour load is by looking at the blacks. Now, as expected, if we take the Statler Norris one, which is the kids branded ones, this looks very grey. And the further down we come, the darker the black gets. And I would say probably the Derwent's the one that stands out the most just from using them as pencils. In terms of how they feel, the Norris pencils are surprisingly soft. And that's obviously, again, kids have not got as much strength in their hands. So in order to get that lay down, if they have a softer pencil, they're not going to have as hard a time. The W.H. Smith ones felt really dry and scratchy going down. And I felt as if I was having to work really hard with them. They also weren't too keen on layering back over themselves when I was doing these darker parts. I was kind of going back over, really reluctant to do that, did not want to do that at all. The Goldfaber pencils, going straight from the W.H. Smith to Goldfaber pencils, the Goldfaber pencils are soft and they're smooth. And they're quite nice. Again, a little bit reluctant on that second layer. Bearing in mind we are on textured paper, but if you're going to go back in after you've done like a watercolour wash, if you want to go back in and add detail with pencil, it's really important that the paper is going to take that. And for standard watercolour paper that's got a bit of texture, I would have expected a bit more from the Goldfaber pencils for that. I was also really confused by the colour choices that they've put in to their 12 set. They put in a white pencil. Why? We do not need this. So they've essentially bumped their customers out of another colour because they wanted to include this white pencil. Obviously, if you choose a larger set, that's not as much of an issue, but I just thought that was a bit of a waste. The other thing I noticed about the colour choices as well was in the Statler set, they've omitted like an ochre colour. And you can see there's one in the W.H. Smith set and there was one in the Goldfaber and the Derwent sets as well. And they've given it in favour of like a peachy tone. Now again, thinking about the type of artworks that young children might use, this more sort of peachy toned colour rather than the ochre colour is probably something that's going to get used a bit more. So I would imagine that was a marketing strategy and a sort of practicality strategy as well. So that kind of makes sense. The thing that struck me most was cutting off here, so going from this mid-range Goldfaber down to both the Derwent and the Albrecht Dürer, it is like night and day. The pencils themselves are so smooth, they're so soft, and you do not have to work with either of these brands to get it down on the paper. These are very, very close for me actually. I'm surprised that I like the Derwent ones as much as I do just as pencil. But yeah, the quality difference is apparent. I would say though that if it's only something you were going to use in once in a while, the Goldfaber pencils are pretty good. in terms of how they feel and actually using them, but there is a stark difference. You know, the artist grade is very apparent, is what I'll say, just from using them. Obviously, the proof is in the pudding when we start to... Hi, woo. Well, Jack Russell's wandering about in the corridor. Just see her toddling past the cave door. Yeah, obviously we're more interested in what happens when you use them with water. But honestly, on a first impression, the only one that I really didn't want to do anything with was the W.H. Smith ones. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The pencils themselves, they're the only ones with circular barrels. They feel quite flimsy and they feel cheap. Whereas with the Norris pencils, I think it's just because there is a hexagonal barrel, but they just feel a lot more substantial. Like, they really do. They feel like a higher quality product. They probably are, to be fair. So I really wasn't digging this whole... This whole pencil thing. The other thing to note as well is both the W.H. Smith pencils and the Norris Aquarelle pencils, they don't have colour names. There's nothing on them. These W.H. Smith pencils have got the dipped ends, that's it. I was kind of turning them round to see if there was anything there, but it just says just to add water on them. That's not very helpful. Again, with the Norris Aquarelle, I would have expected it from them. These are kids' pencils. But it's very, very clear the colour differences with these because it's over the entire barrel. Whereas with the W.H. Smith pencils, I think if you got one of the bigger sets, again, I think they come in 48, I think you could be struggling to remember because the dipped ends don't always match the actual core colour as well. So that was something to note. But the most satisfying thing out of this sort of picking up and using these pencils, the Derwent pencils feel lovely. They feel really, really nice on the paper, and I'm quite impressed because that's the first time I've picked them up. I am generally a fan of Derwent pencils anyway, apart from their pastel pencils, which are horrible. But the main difference for me in terms of feel, and I've talked about this in my videos before, if an item feels cheap to me, it makes me not want to use it. And there is a huge difference in the feeling of these Derwent pencils to picking up one of these Albrecht Dürers. Number one, the pencil diameter is much, much larger. It's a much chunkier pencil. It feels much more substantial. It feels higher quality. And the coating on the pencils as well, this is a much, much more expensive finish than the watercolour pencils by Derwent. You can feel that's kind of rough, so that they're just nicer in your hand, they're nicer to hold, and I like the fact that the colour runs all the way down. That's one thing about Derwent that it's always kind of been, well, it's never been a bone of contention, but it would be nice if the colours were all the way down, because their dipped ends are quite nice. But I like the fact that this is an entire pencil in the colour that it's supposed to be, and if I'm working with several pencils at once, I can glance over and I know I've lifted the right one, whereas you do a bit of swithering with these ones with the dipped ends. So that's just a personal opinion, but this feels like a much more expensive pencil than this, and it's actually not. There's not much in it between these two brands. With the softer pencils, which was the Norris pencils, the Goldfaber, there was a little bit of crumbling with them because the cores are soft, and again, that's to be expected. If anybody's ever had an experience with Prismacolor pencils, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but nothing to the point that it was causing an issue. The only thing with that is obviously if they're in heavy use, they do wear down quickly and you end up having to replace them. Now, another interesting thing to note as well, just along that same theme, is everything from here down can be bought open stock, so you can pick up your Goldfabers open stock as well as the Derwents and the Albrecht Dürers. So if you are going through them and you turn yourself into a watercolour pencil fan, you're not having to buy full sets. With the Staedtler Norris and the W.H. Smith, they do not come open stock. Again, kind of to be expected though. I am pleased and impressed that Goldfaber do come open stock. They are quite popular pencils. I really like the coloured pencils as well. So yeah, I'm pleased with that as well. So now we're going to move on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a couple of colours from each of the sets that are very similar, because obviously we've got a bit of variation in what's available. I want the colours to be as accurate as possible so that we can test them out with water and actually see them side by side. So here we have the yellows and reds from all the sets side by side. That was 2 layers of pencil in a block, and I've just taken my water brush here and I have done 2 passes over the bottom half of the swatch. Now this is to see how well that they dissolve and also how far the paint travels, like how far you can pull it out. Now I know it's difficult to see with the yellows, we are going to do it with some other colours. The Norris ones perform surprisingly well. The colour's really vibrant and I have been able to fade it out a little bit. The the WH Smith pencil didn't really want to go anywhere. It wasn't interested, and as I was trying to pull it down, it was actually just lifting, which is why there's hardly any colour down here. The Goldfaber did quite well, and both the Albrecht Dürer and the Derwent pencils performed equally well as well. And if we go over to the reds, it's a similar sort of story. This is very telling though, that being a darker colour, obviously it's easier for you to see as well. The Norris pencils so far are performing much, much better than I expected in comparison to the others. And the thing that kind of does it for me is, take a look at this down here. This is the Albrecht Dürers, and that's, to me, is what you pay for. That ability for the paint to really travel, or the pencil to travel in this case, it lets you use them much more like watercolour. And also the solubility on the solid parts, this is very, very vibrant. And the Goldfaber's pretty good as well. But again, look at the Norris. Look how much that's kept its colour from the pencil compared to some of the others that look a little bit more washed out. So I am suitably impressed with these little Norris pencils. They're great. So we're going to continue this on now. I've picked out another couple of colours. I've got green and blue, and I've also got the black pencil as well. So I thought we could maybe carry on with that and just see how we go. So that, I'm kind of excited now, and I'm kind of gunning for these Norris pencils, because I remember having these way back at the start of my art journey, and I thought they were pretty good considering they were really cheap pencils. So I'm actually a little bit excited about this now, because you know, that now that I've got more experience, the fact that they're kind of standing up to my initial, you know, my initial like for them, that I'm excited about that. I like that. So here we go with the blues. This was like the dark blues. Say 2 layers just up and down like that. I'm actually almost over the top of the yellow a wee bit there because it came down so far, so that might be interesting. Okay, come on Norris, do it for me. Oh, look at that. And it's quite happy to travel down. Look. Whee! It's having a great time. So impressed. Like, I'm so impressed with these little pencils. Right, WH Smith, what have you got? Not a lot, clearly. No. Little Goldfaber's doing well as well. And the Derwent. Okay, let's go with the greens now as well. Oh, that was the other thing. I changed out the green in the WH Smith set because I thought this would be more similar to the other pencils, but it's not. Again, the dipped end not matching the actual core colour at all, so that's annoying. Someone did mention that to me about the normal coloured pencils as well. Now, I used to have a set of the WH Smith coloured pencils, but they've changed them since I had them. I never had that problem. They still had dipped ends, but the barrels were different. So I think that's obviously an unfortunate change. Okay, here's the Derwent pencil. Come on, Statler. I love you. Oh my goodness. Okay, the green's not so excited, but it's still dissolving really well. And that's something that I'm looking at as well, is how well it's actually taken away the pencil lines. And it seems to be that the Norris one is very, very, very soluble. And some of the Derwent ones have been a little bit reluctant so far. But they are all pretty soluble. I'm really frustrated. Like, I really want to like just writhe this about, the WH Smith one. It's like really reluctant to turn itself into paint. The WH Smith pencils just want to stay pencils. They're like a kid whose parents made them choose a career path that they don't want. But Daddy, I don't want to be a farmer. I want to be an accountant. That's just amusing myself with my own humour. Okay, so I think we can agree that the solubility across all the pencils actually is really good. The WH Smith ones are a little bit stubborn, and some pencils are able to travel further than others with a little bit of coaxing. Now again, with the pencil situation, you want to be able to have that precision. You're not really looking for great big washes, because if you were going to do washes, you would use actual paint. But the fact that you have the versatility, and it's particularly obvious with the Statler and the Albrecht Dürers, you know, you've got manoeuvrability there to do that. Some of the other ones, the Derwent ones and the Faber-Castell Goldfaber ones, they're happy-ish, but you've got a lot more mobility and manoeuvrability with the cheapest pencils and the most expensive pencils, which I find absolutely hilarious. But yeah, that's really, really good. So the last thing that I've got here now that I want to try is the black, because this is very, very telling about your pigments and things. So we'll get these whacked down and we'll have a wee go with those. Now this is the one area so far where I feel that the Norris pencils are falling flat, is the black isn't the darkest that I've seen in my lifetime. But say for a kid's set of pencils, I mean £4 for that set of pencils, you know, like here's the Goldfaber. The more we go on, the Goldfaber pencils are really soft. They're really nice to use. And here's the Derwent. See, this is where I think it's very obvious. Look how dark that is compared to over here. And also we've got our Albrecht Dürer. Come on, little pencils. Look at that. That is just absolutely nuts. And when I was doing that first pull down there, the pigment was wanting to come with me. I could see it chasing the paint. So behaving very much like watercolour, which obviously that's what we want, but that's pretty impressive, and that's pretty dark as well, actually. Okay. Okay, the WH Smith Black is behaving a little bit better. It's nice and dark as well when activated with water, and it's travelling a lot better too, which is quite interesting. It's probably performed the best out of all the WH Smith pencils, is the black one. No effort with the Goldfaber whatsoever. Like, that's, oh yeah, that's really, really easy to use, really happy. You know, I wasn't having to kind of pull it about, manipulate it. And here is the Derwent. Now, interestingly, the Derwent pencil has like a blue tint to it, and that's supposed to be black. I would say that that's definitely interesting. And the Albrecht, oh, made a mistake there. Oh yeah. Now, with the likes of the Derwent and the Albrecht Dürers, there are different types of blacks. This is just black, but you do get, especially with the Derwent pencils, they have like an ivory black, they have a lamp black. But it's interesting that this one's got a really blue tint to it compared to the other ones. So yeah, I think that the price and the quality is very apparent with the blacks as well. I'll zoom in a little bit more just so you can see. You're definitely getting more pigment travel with your Albrecht Dürers, and also the Derwent did really well as well. And all of them are reasonably solid. Again, back to these Norris pencils, that looked really, really grey as a pencil, but when you activate it with water, it's just like kapow, it just goes crazy. I am so impressed with those little pencils. So yeah, that's excellent. The next thing that I want to test is the lifting ability. Now, obviously, you can lift paint when it's wet, but being watercolour, you should be able to lift it a little bit when it's dry. So I want to test that theory out as well, just to see how well we do with that. And I'll probably do it with the blues, just because it's a nice kind of colour. It might get a bit messy if we try it with the black here. So just make sure that my brush is clean. And this is like the thirsty brush technique. You can do this with bits of tissue as well. I'm going to try and cut a line through the paint with a damp brush, and you can see very slightly here that's starting to lift. There we go. So we, again, little Norrises doing what they're supposed to do. You can lift the paint. That's incredible. So while it's damp now, I'm just going to grab a cotton bud. Look at that. I'm not holding out much hope for the WH Smith ones, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you come off when you want to. Oh no, there we go. Yep. Okay. Okay, we're good. That's actually lifting pretty well. Just making sure my brush is clean here before. I do have a scrap of paper off the side, but for some odd reason I like to use my hand. Use a clean end here. Yep, so that's lifting fairly well as well. Okay, let's try with the Goldfaber. Okay, not so good. Okay, really having to work at that, like really having to work at that. That doesn't really want to lift. Derwents, oh, we're off. We are off. Holy Moses. Okay, so the Derwent's lifting really easily. Like, I've barely tickled that and it's wanting to come up. Now, that can be a good thing, but that can also be a bad thing as well, because if you're wanting to layer up more paint on top or another colour, then you might disrupt what's underneath fairly easily. So that's actually, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I've actually torn the paper up there. Okay, interesting. Okay, so the Albrecht Dürers are lifting, but not instantly. So you're having to put in a little bit of work, which is actually better, just as I was saying a minute ago. If your paint lifts too readily, it makes it quite difficult then to layer colour up. But yeah, that is lifting. It's just once you get going, it's happy to do it. But that, again, that's quite good because we know then that if we work over the top of it, we've got a little bit of wiggle room before we're actually going to start disturbing the layer underneath. Not everybody's going to paint in layers with watercolour pencils. Again, down different techniques, different ways people do things. Generally with pencils, I wouldn't. I would put all my colour down first and then activate it with water and manipulate it. But that is purely down to preference. And I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way. As I say, I'm not really a watercolour pencil user unless it's just for like adding little bits in here and there. If anybody has any comments on that, please feel free to leave your wisdom in the comments section below. Would happily hear from you there. Okay, so the other thing that I want to try as well is some blendability, and for this I think probably the best thing to do is to blend yellow into red. So let's start with our wee Norrises. I say that this is like the little donkey in amongst all the big beautiful horses. I'm like, come on, Statler Norris. It's amazing. So let's see what we can do here. I'll fade this out a little bit. I'm just going to try and do this and see how these actually interact with each other. Now, of course, we want to do most of the work with the water, not with the pencils. But I'm going to give us a good start, just to make sure. I'm also going to change brushes because that water brush is about dead. So usually you want to work lightest colour into darkest colour, but again, it depends on what you're doing and what your piece is all about. But let's just see. Come on, brush. Oh, this is so exciting. Oh, look at this. This is just delightful. And that, they are so happy to play together. Like, they really are. Look at it blending out. It's just beautiful. Telling you, I've got a lot of love for these little Statler pencils. I'm so glad that they've stood up to it since I had them a couple of years ago. You were, yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's bring this back down a little bit. Okay, I'm suitably impressed with that. We are starting to lift a little bit here because I've gone over it so many times, but they are so happy to play together, like so happy. Right, W.H. Smith. Oh, they feel so horrible. Like, they feel horrible. I don't know what I'm going to do with these pencils when I'm finished. I don't want to insult anyone by putting these in the stash shop. I may have to, I don't want to insult anyone by giving them to anyone. I may, I have a friend who works in a kid's nursery. I may donate them to her for the kids. That's kids up to school age, so. Right, let's go. Oh, okay. Can you see the stripes? Can you see the stripes? That we don't want stripes. We want beautiful blended. No. Got a stripe. Up next is the Goldfaber. I don't know where I was going with that there. It's way off to the side. Oh, look at that. That's pretty good. Little streaky at the bottom here, but that's okay. Look how gradual that is. I have got... So this is where now the difference between the quality and the price point of these pencils is becoming quite apparent, and it's when it's coming to blending. That's perfect, and I didn't have to do a lot of work with that at all. I had to do a lot of kind of scrubbing about over here, but these still blend better than the W.H. Smith ones. That's just, it's no use to anybody. This is lovely. Okay, so yeah, the Goldfaber, you know, I again, maybe slightly biased because I've used them before and I liked them, but this is really what I expect out of a student grade pencil, and I'm glad that it's come through on that front because it's not been so great in some of the other things that we've looked at. Right, let's try the Derwent pencils. pencils now, and I'm really hopeful for this because I think these Derwent pencils are really, really nice. I don't know if they would ever replace my Albrecht Dürers. I think these are good pencils. I'm going to make this a little bit skinnier just because I'm going to have to fit in the Albrechts at the other side here. No problems with solubility. Again, same thing, a little bit of pigment travelling there, but look at that, that's just exactly what we wanted. Exactly. I was expecting that to be a little bit more vibrant than that, but, still good, still good. And finally, we'll do the Albrechts. I would just like to point out as well, now that this is drying, look at the vibrancy of the red over here from the Norris pencils. Excellent, absolutely excellent. Oh, I took that bit too far there, never mind. Like, there's no effort here at all, none whatsoever. Now I have got a little bit more of a line. I'm pretty sure I can soften that out, yep. In terms of blendability and solubility, everything's performed fairly well. I would have expected the Derwent to have done a little bit better. Again, that can be dependent on paper as well, though. That's one thing I will say. So quite an interesting set of what's going on, especially the lifting. That was super interesting. The situation with the Derwent one kind of concerns me a little bit, you know, in terms of having to use something else over the top of it. Which brings me on to the next thing that I want to look at. If we want to add in detail or even just like an accent or a hint, and I'm going to do it with the green over the yellow, we want to be able to add on top and maybe activate it with water, and hopefully it's not going to mess up what's going on underneath too much, because that brings versatility to your watercolour pencils. What I want to do here is I'm just going to draw a little shape on top. And again, this will depend on the paper, but the pencil should go down okay on top of its diluted counterpart underneath. So I'm just going to draw a little diamond there. I'm going to have to try and squeeze one in here, seeing as I like, see, even picking these pencils up and using them, this is horrible. Like, it's absolutely horrible. I feel as if like I'm gouging my eye out with a spoon, you know, it's that unpleasant. And so far the Goldfaber feels the nicest to work on top. Oh no, it changed my Derwent feels nicer. Yeah, Derwent feels nicest on top. Right, okay, so if we take our water brush now, and I just want to dilute out the bottom part of my little diamonds here, because we want this to be vibrant. Oh look, that's done so well. That is picking up the yellow underneath. See, if I just do that down there, you'll see that some of that's coming off, but that's not bad. Again, we're talking about a budget pencil here. Well, I know what's going to happen with the WH Smith, it's just not going to do anything. Yeah, you're basically diluting that out to next to nothing, so that's helpful. Goldfaber, not bad. Derwent, oh, holding its own. Excellent. Oh, interesting. Albrecht Dürer, not so great. So we'll let that dry for a little minute as well. We could try with the blue as well, the blue pencils over the green. So let's do like a larger area this time. So let's do this. Let's be hooligans. Look how scratchy. Can you see that? I would just like to zoom right. That's as far as I can zoom in. Can you see how scratchy that is? I really hope that you can. They're bloody awful, these pencils. Do not buy the WH Smith watercolour pencils. For half the price you can have the Statler Norris, which are far more pleasant to work with. Right, Goldfaber Aqua. Oh, that feels so nice going down on there. That's beautiful. That, again, back to the softness of these Goldfaber pencils. So nice. So nice. Derwent, same as well. Really nice to put down on top there. Oh, and the Albrecht Dürer pencils feel as if I'm using a normal coloured pencil. Now, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's what it feels like. That's nice. I'm enjoying that. That makes me happy. So what we want to do now is we would want to activate this on top of the green, but we don't want it to dilute out so much that it starts to lift. And also we still want to be able to, for it to be semi-transparent, you know, you still want to be able to see a little bit underneath. But you would go lightly doing this if you were, you know, if you were working on something. Oh, WH Smith. That's pretty good. Oh, the Goldfaber's good. The Norris is just fabulous. Like, I just love these little pencils. Oh, nice work, Derwent. Look at that. Beautiful. Oh, yes. Look, look, look. Okay, everything apart from the W.H. Smith has performed really well here. Little bit of lifting with the Norris pencil just at the top there. Ridiculous amounts of lifting with the with the W.H. Smith pencils. But the Goldfaber, the Derwent and the Albrecht Dürer are holding up really well for layering as well. So 3 really good pencils there. Honestly, I like see just as a whole, apart from the W.H. Smith pencils, I am so impressed with all of these coloured pencils. So I think that's enough rigorous testing for one video. Just on these tests, now I say this about everything that we do here, it's all very well sitting here swatching stuff out. You don't see the real applications and the real consequences until you actually try and do an artwork with them, because I have been surprised on more than a few occasions at the difference between the swatching performance and actual artwork performance. So we're going to take all of these pencils with us into the next video, and we're going to paint a small artwork, and we're going to do the same artwork with all the sets of pencils. But just on the first impressions and my first sort of observations of everything here, if you are an occasional watercolour pencil user, or you are new to pencils and you want to try watercolour pencils, honestly, I am the little Statler Norris pencils all the way. They're fabulous little pencils, and they're so cheap. This set of 12, you can pick these up for as little as £3 if you go onto eBay or whatever. Absolutely 100% worth it. I'm just going to find out the biggest set of these you can buy, like the biggest colour range you can get. Okay, the biggest set of these comes in 36 pencils, so that would give you plenty to play with as well. They're really soft, they are quite cooperative as well, and the colours are so vibrant when you activate them with water. I'm so surprised, but they are as good as I remember, which is nice because that means I get to feel smug and feel right. The W.H. Smith pencils I would avoid like the absolute plague. These also come in a set of 36 if you are interested. Personally, I wouldn't bother. Yeah, no. I would just say no. They feel really cheap. Like they're just not, they're not nice pencils. Their normal coloured pencils are very good for the money, but these unfortunately aren't. I think they've just overstretched their capabilities a little bit there in terms of branching into art supplies. The Goldfaber Aqua, I kind of lean towards these because they are a cheaper alternative to forking out for an artist grade set of pencils, and you can buy these open stock, and that's like a huge plus for me in any pencil. I'm much more inclined to pay a little bit more and go for something that I can buy open stock, because what I tend to find is there are certain colours that you have as favourites and you end up using them a lot. The fact that I like to use a dark blue as a shadow colour, that's a pencil that disappears really quickly for me, so if I can buy one of those on its own, that's far better. And the Goldfaber, they're nice, they're comfortable pencils to use, and they're nice and soft, which I like as well. And for a student grade pencil, they've performed reasonably well. There's not much in it between the Derwent pencils and the Albrecht Dürers. I think I'll lean towards the Faber-Castell ones just because I already own them and I'm used to using them, but I'm really impressed with the Derwent pencils. The only downside for me is this difference in barrel size and how the pencils feel, and the coloured tips versus the entire coloured barrel. I just feel that this is a better built pencil than this one, but in terms of performance so far they're quite easily matched, and I am impressed with the Derwent pencils. Being in the UK, it is a possibility to pick these up cheaper sometimes because they're UK pencils, so that might even be worth it if you were swithering between a set of artist pencils. I would recommend either of these, but if you're in the UK you might be able to get a little bargain on some of these, and that would make it worthwhile in terms of saving yourself some money but still getting good performance. So as I say, we will take these into the next video and we'll actually do some art. I hope this has been useful information for you so far. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. Have a good day everyone. Bye for now.